Right. Everyone buckled up back there?
Yes, Dad.
Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 226 for the 16th of February 2013. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. And yes, that was another little tease for solar flare at the beginning of the show. What is Maynard doing with all of us being buckled up? Boggles the mind. We're going to kick off today's show with an interview with a very dear friend of mine, Dr Krissy Wilson, who was on the show 4 or 5 weeks ago. Dr. Krissy is going to tell us more about her SOAP activities, SOAP, Science of Anomalistic Phenomena, and how you can help her scientific research. After that, it's Maynard up in Newcastle, which is the major city just to the north of Sydney, where he attended a Science in the Pub. I think Maynard likes going to the pub, especially when there's skeptics and scientists involved. Science in the Pub with Maynard, getting the reaction from various pub goers and what they thought of the Science in the Pub idea. Then to round off the show, another dear old friend of mine, Dr Paul Willis, who's the director of the Royal Institution of Australia in Adelaide, bringing science to people and people to science. Paul's going to tell us about the recent activities at the Royal Institution and the latest findings into the extinction of the dinosaurs. That's coming up at the end of the show. Now let me take this opportunity to send out a huge congratulations and all my love and good wishes to my dear friends Jay and Courtney Novella and the wonderful news of the birth of their son Dylan. Wow, the pictures look fantastic. I can't wait to meet him. Congratulations, Jay and Courtney. What wonderful news. I was part of the little group gathered at the Sydney Opera House, Jay, when you proposed to Courtney in just before TAM, in fact. TAM Australia in 2010. Wow. Fantastic news. And some interesting news for people in Australia, especially if you fancy yourself to be a water diviner. Can you find water or gold with a divining rod? That's the question Australian skeptics are asking, and we have a challenge. The challenge will be held at Mitta Victoria on the 10th of March this year, 2013. So we're asking for water diviners to come along, have a go, test your skills, and who knows, you might be up for our prize money of, I think it's looking like $110,000 at the moment. Now, Mitta is a wonderful little country town, and the water divining test's going to be part of the mighty Mitta Muster. And Mitta is not too far outside of the Albury-Wodonga area. So, if you are a water diviner, or you know a water diviner, contact Laurie Smith, and his phone number is 02-6072-3415, or email him at callaghans1@gmail.com. Find out some more information. Turn up on the day, on the 10th of March 2013 at Mitta. Take part in the Australian Skeptics Water Divining Challenge. Well, with my voice running out the door, I don't know why. Must be all that singing and yelling I've been doing lately. I think I'll run downstairs, have a nice glass of peppermint tea while you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
My name is Dr Krissy Wilson, and I am a lecturer in psychology here at Charles Sturt University on the beautiful Albury and Wodonga campus. My area of expertise is known as anomalistic psychology, which I bet most of you haven't heard of, but I'm sure you'll have heard of parapsychology. Parapsychology tends to be very sympathetic towards claims of the paranormal, towards claims of psychic forces and related phenomena, whereas anomalistic psychology is far more sceptical in its approach, tending rather to look for psychological and in some cases physiological reasons why some people believe in weird and wonderful things. Essentially, what I'm trying to do is to try and understand the psychology of belief. Earlier this year, I set up a brand new research unit here at CSU called the Science of Anomalistic Phenomena, or SOAP. SOAP's aim is to investigate the psychology of belief, to explore some of those reasons why people believe in weird and wonderful things, to look at individual difference measures, to look at biological factors, to look at the role of cognition, not only in belief, but to explore the nature of ostensibly paranormal experiences. So thanks for logging on to the SOAP website today. I hope you'll find some fun and interesting information for you to look at. You can check out who the members of SOAP are. You can find out what kind of activities and what kind of studies we're running here. You can also look at some interesting publications that I've uploaded for you. Interesting articles on all kinds of information about the psychology of belief and related phenomena. Most importantly, though, I'd like you to have a look at our research participation. If you'd like to take part in any of our studies, simply follow the links. It'll only take about 15 or 20 minutes for you to complete one of our surveys. I hope you have fun with it. And thanks very much for logging on today, and welcome to SOAP.
And joining me now from the beautiful city of Albury in southern New South Wales, right on the border of Victoria, it's Dr Krissy Wilson. Hello, Krissy.
Hello, Richard. Hello, listeners.
Well, it's great to catch up with you again, Krissy. In fact, I had a wonderful time about a year ago when I went down to Albury there to help you launch SOAP. Now, can you remind our listeners all about SOAP?
Well, I can't believe it's actually been a whole year since we launched SOAP. But yes, to remind listeners, SOAP stands for the Science of Anomalistic Phenomena. And as you know, Richard, since I arrived in Australia about 5 years ago, I wanted to set up my own unit because although skepticism is alive and very, very well and very, very active in Australia, we don't have in Australia a sort of academic base for investigations into the paranormal and the psychology of belief. So that's we do in Europe, you see, and in America, but we don't really have that here in Australia. So when I arrived, it's been my wish to do that, my vision, if you like, to get that settled. And now that I'm settled at Charles Sturt University here in Albury, they've been really supportive, and so they've allowed me to set up the unit here. It's part of the School of Psychology. It's called SOAP, Science of Anomalistic Phenomena, and it's basically investigating the science of belief. Why do people believe in weird and wonderful things? Not only in their beliefs, but in their experiences. And I say this a lot, that I'm not a parapsychologist, as you know. I am not trying to prove whether psychic phenomena is real or is not real. What I'm interested in is why people believe in these things. Where do their beliefs begin? How are they maintained? What types of experiences do people have? And is it possible that there are some of us that are more susceptible to believing in these types of extraordinary phenomena? So that was my aim. And a year ago, we had the launch, as you know, and you came down and gave a wonderful demonstration, and we had a little talk, and we had a little debate amongst the audience. And the main purpose of that launch was, one, to have this kind of symbolic launch, which was important, and also to get the media interest. But it was also to recruit participants, because I want the local rural community to take part in the studies, believers and non-believers and all points in between. So because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for similarities and differences. So I want believers, non-believers and everybody in between. So from that point of view, it was very successful. Yeah, I've now got a database of participants, probably about 90 people from different areas, not just in the Albury, New South Wales region, but across Australia, actually, people that have heard about SOAP either through Twitter or through yourself or through websites, etc. And it's growing. It takes a while, like everything else, it takes a while, lots of hard work, but we're definitely getting there. So it's very exciting.
It is, and you were a guest on the Skeptic Zone, only a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, when you were chatting to Maynard about some of the things you get up to, and I particularly well remember that you went to see a certain psychic who you were less than impressed with, and stood up and made your views known.
Yeah, you could say that. Don't really want to reveal the person's name, but let's just say that he wasn't exactly Australia's number one. I'd say he was more like Australia's biggest number two. Oh,
dearie me. I wonder what that could mean. Well, when you're number two, you always try harder to be number one, don't you? That's the...
Well, he was certainly trying. I'll give him that.
But the point I'll get to is that no matter who it is, and of course I've seen many of these people over the years at various stage shows, and one of my bugbears, and one of the things I think is a great pity, is often I'll go and see these performers at what we call our RSL club, which is a club devoted to the memory of fallen soldiers and returned soldiers, particularly after World War II, but every war since then. And to have these performers go to these clubs which are dedicated to the solemn memory of fallen soldiers, and then to pretend to chat to dead people, I always thought was really, really, really bad taste. So if anybody's listening out there involved with the RSL club movement, I'm not very impressed with that at all.
No, it's I try to be an open-minded, objective social scientist in all that I do. I try to keep emotion out of it, because the minute you start to get emotional about things, then you lose your sense of proportion. You become biased in your view, and as you know, in science we have to be objective. But this is the one thing that really gets me very, very cross, to sit in the audience and to watch this clown on the stage spouting complete nonsense while there's a poor woman in the audience crying, sobbing a little heart out because she believes that this idiot is talking to the spirit of her dead husband or a dead child. It's so objectionable to watch, and I find it very, very distressing. And when I went to see this certain person who came to the Albury Entertainment Centre. Yes, we do have an entertainment centre. That's not a contradiction in terms. I was looking forward to it. I mean, I couldn't wait to watch and to see what he got up to. I knew what it was going to be. I knew how more.
Well, when you and I go and see something like this, not to demean the average skeptic out there, but I think that I'm right in saying that you and I and some other skeptics have had a particular backlog of experience in watching these people. Yeah. So we're able to, with our experience, know and recognize and see certain techniques and psychological tricks being used.
Oh, yeah. And this guy, I'll give him his due. He's very clever. He knows exactly how to manipulate the audience. He has all the tricks. He doesn't cold read, Richard. He doesn't need to cold read. He just stands there and makes suggestions. Yeah. And then, of course, the audience just give him, as always, all the material. Yeah. He doesn't actually cold read. He's not even good enough to do that.
They don't have to be, do they?
No, because the audience are primed.
They're pre-sold, yeah.
Yeah, this character, what he does also is he has a VIP session. That's what he calls it on his website. Come along and meet me in the VIP session before the actual show. So he gets a bunch of his fans. They all trot along, and apparently there was about 25 of them for this VIP session. They sit there, and then he chats to them, and he discloses personal information about himself. So, this is what happened to me. This is how I became a psychic. This is how I discovered, that I had this gift. And he just chats to the audience. And naturally, the people open up and they give him all sorts of information about the area, about them personally. So he's got all kinds of material there. So during the show, if it all goes a bit quiet, if it doesn't go to plan, he's got this wealth of material that he's collected just an hour before that he can use. Oh, well, I'm getting a suicide. Look, this is rural New South Wales. Unfortunately, suicide is an issue here. So that was the very first thing he did, and I think I tweeted it actually. I bet he does a suicide and a man in uniform in the first half an hour. The very first one he did was a suicide.
Oh dear!
I sat there. There was steam coming out my ears.
Well, to the extent that you actually stood up and challenged him, it's something I've been tempted to do quite a few times. The worst time was when. And I've written about this many years ago. It was a psychic by the name of the amazing Valda suggested to the audience that the dead from 9/11 were running around the auditorium. It's the one time I gripped the handles of my chair to stop myself standing up because I wanted her to do a whole routine. Then I could write about it, which I did. Yeah. But one day I might say to hell with it, stand up and blast one of these people, but. Yeah,
it doesn't do any good, though.
It
doesn't. Is it? And someone said to me previously, look, if you challenge these people in front of their followers, all you're doing is you're making a martyr out of them. And this is exactly what happened. Everybody in the audience was screaming at me, "I'll sit down. Why did you come? Get lost. Get out of here. Trash." And I turned to them and I said, well, don't you want to know? Don't you want to know if you're being fooled? Don't you want to know if you're just having the mickey taken out of you?
Yeah.
And for a split second, they seem to think, no, he's perfectly right. But at the end of it, several people came up to me afterwards and I thought, here we go, I'm going to get thumped at the very least. But they just asked me questions. They wanted to know, well, why are you so sure that this is not real? So there was seeds of doubt in some of their minds for sure. But like I said, for the majority of the audience, I was just making him into a martyr. And then, of course, he stood there and he said, oh, look, don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm used to this kind of criticism, it just comes with the territory, I'm afraid, Oh, God.
Really, I find that hard to believe. I think he would very rarely get any criticism at all.
Oh, well, he knew perfectly well that there was nothing that I could say that would turn the audience against him. And his management were very, very switched on as well. They knew exactly how to handle the situation. They were very switched on. And I've looked them up on the internet, and they manage a lot of psychics, alleged psychics.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, let's get back to soap, because this is all ties in. And the reason you go along and see is to observe the performer in action, shall we say, but also the experience you get from your interaction with the audience I think would be invaluable research for your soap activities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a skeptic, but I am a psychologist. So the whole psychology of the situation is fascinating for me. The more I look at this and the more I study and investigate these things, the more I realise that it has nothing to do with age, gender, social economic background, education, intelligence. So many of us believe in something which is probably not real. We're all susceptible to being influenced by our own prejudices, if you like. We're all susceptible to these things. That certainly it does fuel my research without a shadow of a doubt. What psychological processes are going on there? What draws certain individuals to these types of beliefs, and how are these beliefs maintained? I'm not a clinical psychologist. That's a separate field, so I don't specifically look at psychopathology. And really, I mean, that's not what we're talking about here anyway. People that believe that are not necessarily suffering from some kind of mental disorder. That's what I'm trying to say, that, we're all susceptible to these things. And to some extent, we all believe in something. So most of the studies that we're carrying out at the moment are mostly questionnaire studies. So we send out lots of measures of sort of personality measures, belief measures, and we're basically measuring similarities and differences. So, for example, the first one that I did was looking at well-being, because I'm often asked, well, is it a good thing to have beliefs? Does it actually make people feel better about themselves and help them cope with the difficulty of modern life? And to some extent, I think it does. So I looked at subjective well-being and happiness scales and belief to see if there was any kind of correlation there. And it turned out, yes, believers do appear to be happier.
Getting back to what you're looking into, why is this taken off in certain cultures and certain people? Why do people think like this? I was just thinking also before, wouldn't it be great, and we haven't done it yet, that you and I get together one day and go and see one of these performances? I know. Oh, could you imagine? That would be so much fun.
Well, I'd like to have the whole sort of second row of skeptics, the whole row of skeptics, all sat there, arms folded.
Folded.
Come on, mate, bring it on.
That's right.
Well, the next time that certain person that I was talking about comes on tour around New South Wales and Victoria, then I'm determined to make sure that there's a whole bunch of skeptics down there in the front row, staring at him, giving him a hard time.
I tell you, I'll turn up and I'll put on my skeptic glasses and I'll cross my legs and fold my arms and get my notebook out. That'll frighten him.
Yeah, well, that's what I did with this character. I sat there, front row, with a notepad, huffing and puffing all the way through. So right from the start, he knew that I'm obviously disgruntled little participant, that there was something wrong. And they actually came to me with the microphone. He at the end of the show, he said, right, well, this is a question and answer session, let's open it up to the audience. So straight away, my arm went straight up and they came straight to me, to be fair to them. So they had noticed already that, right, who that weird little woman in the front, what's up with her?
What fun. Now, Krissy, how can our listeners find out more and aid in your research at SOAP?
Yes, sorry, I'm rambling on as I always do and getting off the point. The point is SOAP. Yes, SOAP. We now have a wonderful website. I say wonderful, it's in its early stages.
Yeah.
It's we're trying to improve it. I've finally got it up and running, but it's in its early stages, so it will get better and better. The website is www.soap.org.au.
Oh, that's easy to remember.
Yeah, well, if you just Google SOAP, unfortunately, you'll get the Society of Obstetrics and various other things. So if you keep soap.org, you'll get Science of Anomalistic Phenomena. So you can log on to the website. Now, I've got big plans for the website because one of the main reasons for doing it is, yes, to carry out research, but I also want it to be an educational tool. So I want people to be able to log on and to be able to link into lectures. So I'm going to do a series of lectures on various anomalistic psychology issues. So some of the things we've been talking about today, but also about the history of parapsychology, all kinds of things relating to the science of belief. So I'm going to record lectures and load them onto the website so people can tune in and listen to them. We've also got a couple of videos up there. There's a welcome video from me up there at the moment, and a couple of other little things. And we've got a video of the SOAP launch now. It's an edited version. It's only about 10 minutes or so, just to give people an idea of what it's all about. And there's a link to research participation. So if any of our gorgeous listeners would like to take part in any of the studies, we've got one left up there at the moment. And in the next few weeks, I'm going to load up another couple. If anybody wants to take part, all they have to do, log on to the website, click on research participation, and that will take them straight to whatever studies we've got up on there. At the moment, we've just got the one, but in a couple of weeks' time, there'll be 2 or 3 more. And they can just click on the link and then do the study. And they don't have to be skeptics. It can be anybody. You know, I don't just want skeptics to take part. I want believers, skeptics, and all points in between. So, anybody who wants to take part in the studies. There's also an email account. So if anybody wants to become a soap sud, the soap suds, or soap studs as I keep calling them.
Soap studs, all right.
Slip. If anybody wants to become a soap sud, then they just send me their email address and then I'll put them onto the mailing list. So whenever we have any sort of new lecture or a new event coming up or a new study, then I can just send them the details.
Excellent news, Krissy. No, it's really great, and I should come and visit you. In fact, why don't I do that? Because I am coming to your neck of the woods.
You are?
To take part in the Midda Water Dividing Challenge on the 10th of March. And we can catch up then and talk about more soapy things.
Well, let's do a little podcasty thing for soap, maybe.
I think that's a great idea.
And I'll stick that on the website. And also, I should say, if anybody's got any suggestions about things they'd like to know about belief and the paranormal, any kind of ideas for studies. I mean, I'm always open to ideas about the kinds of directions we can go in and types of studies that I can carry out. There's quite a few things planned for this year, looking at cognitive biases, biological biases, and various other things. But I'm always open to suggestions. So if any of the listeners would like to suggest something, then just email me at kwilson@csu.edu.au, and always happy to get suggestions.
Excellent. Krissy Wilson from SOAP and www.soap.org.au. Thank you once again for being on the Skeptic Zone. You're actually technically our roving reporter, so we'll have to get a few reports out of you.
Definitely. I'll try my best.
And I'm sure we'll have some fun when we catch up really soon. Krissy Wilson, thanks very much.
Okay, cheers, Richard. Take care. Mwah, big kiss.
Jeg er Marit. Og jeg er Kristin. Og vi vil tipse deg som norsk lytter av The Skeptic Zone om skeptikermiljøet i Norge. Det finnes norske blogger og pubtreff og podcast, og foreningen Skepsis driver med slikt som disse du hører på nå. Sentralt er skepsis.no, og her publiseres det dyptgående artikler, en kalender over aktiviteter og lenker til nyttige ressurser. Skepsis-bloggen oppdateres jevnlig, og det diskuteres heftig på forumet. Så stikk innom og delta du også. Skepsis.no.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Have I got an adventure I'm going to take you on right now? Let's get in the Maynard mobile and go into deepest, darkest Newcastle. That's right, picture this. Wednesday night in Newcastle is normally, after midnight, a lot of drinking goes on from the students and they go from venue to venue having, shall we say, a studenty good time. But this Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, underground, underneath the Grand Hotel, opposite the courthouse, where all the action happens, where the journalists who used to be employed in Newcastle used to drink when there were journalists in Newcastle before they all got sacked. The Grand Hotel, downstairs, there was a Science in the Pub. Science in the Pub is fantastic. It's happening at a number of places around Australia, but we had a special lineup of local people at the Newcastle Science in the Pub. Laureate Professor John Aitken, Professor Rodney Scott, and Professor Pablo Moscato. They formed the panel on the night, and they talked about nanotechnology, biotechnology, and bioethics. How many people do you think turned up for this in Newcastle? Don't ask. Over 100. And I'm just saying over 100 because, as someone pointed out, it wasn't mathematics in the pub. I couldn't count them all. There were people jammed in behind chairs. Everyone had a hoot of a time. I think it's about time we had stadium science. We've got stadium rock. Why can't we have stadium science? Why can't Hawking get up there, take some questions, and then crowd surf? I don't know why that can't happen. What about Dawkins? The Richard Dawkins drinking challenge on stage while he's taking questions. Perfect. I know, I'd be there. This is the first of a couple of Science in the Pubs around Australia. Science in the Pub will be at Hobart on the 7th of March. It'll be in Dubbo on the 14th of March. And the rest of the dates haven't been organised yet, but there will be Science in the Pub at Port Lincoln, Kalgoorlie, Broome, Darwin, Townsville and Toowoomba. It's also presented by ABC Local Radio. So if you know your ABC local radio station, and you should, in Hobart, Dubbo, Port Lincoln, Kalgoorlie, Broome, Darwin, Townsville and Toowoomba, they will also be announcing it. Science in the Pub, it's happening. But right now, we take you to shortly after Science in the Pub finished. They were talking nanotechnology. They were talking high tech. And then they were talking to me. Bit of a disappointment, really. Oh, hang on. Late breaking news. The website, if you'd like to know exactly more about this, is... Oh, and of course, it's a very easy one to remember. TechNU.edu 2012... No, it is tech, TECHNYOU.edu.au/2013/02/Science in the Pub, all one word. That website, in case you missed it again, or you can just run the MP3 back. TechU.edu.au/2013/02/Science in the Pub. But if you have a look at the show notes for the Skeptic Zone, this very episode, I'm sure that link will be there. And now back to our regular scheduled program. Right up. I'm beginning to feel a lot like eggplant. Look, we've just had...
It's almost nepotism.
We've just had Science in the Pub. What do you think of it, sir?
It was excellent.
And what's your field of interest? What was the bit that interested you the most? We had 3 top scientists down there.
It was all very interesting, but the area I work in was the bit they spoke about at the end, which is end of life.
Yeah. So, and what conclusion was it? A societal-driven answer?
The conclusion was that I shouldn't actually ask the question I was going to ask, because it would have brought it down on everything. Because everything was dealing with conception, and they sort of finished off with the euthanasia. I thought it was probably not the note to go out on. Well, it actually is the note to go out on, isn't it?
But a huge night, wasn't it? I mean, all these people in Newcastle talking about science.
Quality stuff, yeah.
Now, what do you think of our Science in the Pub night? What a huge amount of people.
I thought it was really good. I'm out of my league here. I'm not a science person. I'm a stay-at-home mother.
I've got to say, when they started talking about genome sequencing, I was a bit confused myself.
I was more curious about... I have 4 boys and I would do anything to get a girl. So I wish that they could do gender selection, but, you know...
Well, I don't think you'd expect that downstairs at the Grand Hotel on a Wednesday night.
That's right, no.
And what do you think of the evening?
I really liked it.
And was there a part that really appealed to you? A lot of it was quite pitched high, but I quite like the fact that I didn't know some of it because it was interesting.
I studied biotechnology at the University of Newcastle, so I knew a lot of what they were talking about.
Right, so they never lost you once?
No, not really.
But was there an area that...
About the computers, I was interested about the computers working with the genetics.
Oh, and that was the bit that really fired the imagination.
Oh yeah, I thought that was really interesting how they're doing that.
And of course, all the people that turned up. I'm surprised we got over 100 people here tonight.
Yeah, we had trouble getting a seat, so good job.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Look, the crowd's moving away now. I think you were the young Newton Novocastrian of the Year or something you mentioned? Or was that this one here? Look, well, you had a pretty good question too, and you were constantly blogging. What was everyone saying on Twitter while that was going on?
I was looking, I saw quite a few people tweeting as the event was going on, which was great to see. Lots of people really engaged in the discussion. Lots of people who were really excited that this science event was happening in a pub here in town. And
on a Wednesday night in Newcastle, and we've got more than 100 people.
Which is fantastic. When most of these people, I think, aren't heading out to student night in town. It's a very different crowd than you'd normally see out.
Well, normally you don't see them till after midnight, very drunk.
Yes, certainly. But it would be great if events like this could continue in Newcastle. I think given the turnout tonight, there's certainly a desire for them to continue. There's certainly been an audience for them.
And the crowd, what was the area of the conversation that you went, all right, at?
So there was a very big discussion about the ethics around science, which is, I think, an area that the public can engage more broadly, where it's not about the the ins and outs of science, the technical knowledge that you have to engage in the discussion, but what you think science should be focusing on, what the areas you think should be off limit to science, and where you think science should be going in the future.
And have you got a rough answer to where you think science should be going in the future?
Oh, no idea. I'd certainly like to see a lot more science continuing in climate change. I think that's an area where, particularly here in Newcastle, there's scope for a lot more research in that field. I know we have the CSIRO Clean Energy Centre here in town, which is doing fantastic work.
Well, look, they've got their death ray at West Maitland. They've got that solar array that's set up there. It looks like they're doing something really spooky.
Yeah, it's doing great things. They've also got their site in Western Newcastle that's doing a lot of energy efficiency. We've got the smart city grid system that's getting up and running, which will hopefully be a huge improvement in reducing the amount of electricity we use across the country. And just the enormous talent that we have through the university. It would be great to hear more of the stories coming out of there.
Yeah, so you hear that, people listening? There is science going on in Newcastle. Thank you.
Definitely.
Now, you were the person who had the question that stopped them a bit there. You were being a bit of a troublemaker. What were you asking early on?
So I was asking a question about how politics and science interact, and essentially how a government can function in a situation where science is often far ahead of where the regulatory framework exists.
Yes, because just off the top of my head, I wouldn't think there'd be a lot of votes in working out ethics on something that no one's interested in just yet.
Yeah, I think that was addressed in the answers, in that politics tends to focus far too much on tomorrow's polling figures, or and even looking as the furthest distance we look ahead is the next election, whereas science produces things that are going to pay off in 10, 20, 50 years' time. And so great forethought is required on behalf of regulators in order to achieve significant gains.
And you were Young Novocastrian of the Year, I believe.
That's right.
And wasn't it great to see, I've said this a few times because I'm really into it, 100 people getting together to talk about science on a Wednesday night at Newcastle?
I think it's fantastic. I mean,
in a pub.
In a pub, exactly. I mean, far too often science is done in universities where crazy academics publish papers that the vast majority of the community never see, and so it's a really important thing that the community get to see the payoff of what science is producing in society.
Look, frankly speaking, from a scientific perspective, it was great to see some good haircuts in the room. I mean, normally when you go to science stuff, you can't see one decent haircut in the entire forum.
Oh, that's definitely true, Maynard. Definitely true.
Okay, well, have a good night.
You too.
Actually, how many people you reckon we should get next time? What kind of room do we need? I mean, it's almost like we need the band room at the Cambridge, isn't it?
We definitely need the band room at the Cambridge. I think that's the next logical step.
Let's do some stadium science.
Exactly.
Just a moment. Look, this is a Skeptic Zone special. Now, many of you science viewers will remember this voice. Who is this person?
Hello, tonight on Quantum, I'm standing outside of a fascinating laboratory where they're testing high heel shoes.
That's right, that's the voice of Jill Emberson, and you worked on Quantum for many years. What was the state of science reporting when you were doing it?
It was absolutely embryonic. I had no scientific knowledge whatsoever. I'd walked out of playing records and talking silly bits at 2JJJ, Maynard. I needed no science. We were babies in the woods. I hope it's come a long way.
Yeah, and the whole geek culture has improved as well. I mean, now the word geek is certainly not an insult.
I think being a geek is cool. I'm not a geek and I feel I'm on the outside. Can you help me?
Now, I'm speaking to you because you hosted Science in the Pub here at Newcastle. Now, what did you think was the moment where the evening really took off? Because there was a lot of feisty questions about ethics, science, the future, euthanasia, politics. What was the moment when you went, oh, here we go?
When Pablo... Two moments. First, when the New South Wales Scientist of the Year said his alternative career path was real estate. We got through that wave. The next moment was when Professor Pablo Moscato, yes, that is his real name, said that we are in a revolution and that the revolution is here. It's not up the road when it comes to genetic knowledge that we've got right now. I think there was a big aha moment.
Look, Jill, I'll let you give it to meeting people at the pub. But how about, look, I mentioned 100 people in Newcastle on a Wednesday night in a pub talking about science and high-level genome stuff too.
I'm blown away.
I am really blown away too.
There's even more people here than the jazz night, which has taken a lot of developing. I'm blown away that there are this many people, 100 plus, for science in the pub on a school night.
I've called it the Band Room at the Cambridge Stadium Science. That's the next thing.
I'll see you there.
Oh, look, we're getting close to the bar, but not quite. How did you enjoy science in the pub, and are you blown away by how many people turned up?
It was chockers. I couldn't find a seat. I came in a few minutes late, and it was so full, but it was great. It was absolutely worth it.
What was your interest? Are you studying the field, or?
Yeah, I'm a medical student, so a few of my lecturers were here today, actually.
And now they were talking at a fairly high level with some of the sciences. What did you think of the level that they were pitching at? It was quite high, wasn't it?
It was high, but I think they managed to bring it down to a level that most people could understand, and that, they really simplified the concepts.
Well, was there a question that was asked, you went, I want to know that, answer too?
The questions on pharmaceutical pricing, so treating cancer treatments and how we can bring down costs, it seemed very relevant.
I thought it was interesting the way he was comparing it to the cost of HIV treatment in the early 90s.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But it was mentioned by the other person there that when you looked at the effectiveness of the cancer treatment, it was working out about $1 million a patient, which I thought was a very interesting figure.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's where they were talking about tailoring treatments, and so the importance of funding research and in the long term bringing down pharmaceutical prices.
And any idea if you'd like to specialise when you finished your training?
Yeah, definitely. I'm hearing from John Aitken, the fertility specialist. It's something I'm very interested in, so maybe one day.
Would you be concerned about us living in a Gattaca world one day where there's the people who have the DNA that can be changed and the ones that, like us, can't?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of science fiction talk that goes on as well. A lot of people make the slippery slope argument, but, at the end of the day, they were talking about how we do have regulation in place. We have got really good systems, so I don't really think it'd go quite as extreme as the science fiction.
And what is the next place to do the science in the pub? It was huge, 100 people.
Somewhere bigger.
Thank you very much. And what were you into tonight? What brought you along? You were a student as well?
Oh, I'm a doctor, but I'm also studying a Masters of Public Health at the moment.
Oh, so you actually have to have people sitting in front of you that are sick?
Yes, I do.
Okay. On an actual everyday basis. What did you get out of the discussion tonight?
I felt it was very interesting and topical in terms of research and how much we're actually funding the area and the opportunities that are available and what needs to be done to sort of involve the community, the governments more, and sort of appreciating and encouraging that sort of research pursuit.
What did you think was the most controversial question? There was a couple of political questions asked and about fertility and all that sort of thing.
Yes, definitely. I think there was a very topical question raised about whether people should have access to information that they haven't necessarily asked for themselves in terms of genetic testing, which is kind of a Pandora's box, because if you're not sort of expecting that information, how can you expect someone to deal with it and to want to have that information? I think in terms of research, it's important to have that information, but then from a patient perspective, it might impair their quality of life if they find out. So that's always going to be a tricky balance.
Do you think doctors' records should be more transparent than they are now, or do you think there is a need for secrecy because you do write all sorts of things when you're speculating about a patient's illness?
I think that patient records are already quite transparent. Patients definitely have access to their information and can ask for it at any given time, but I think patients...
people like insurance companies should have access to it. That would definitely change the game.
I think insurance companies shouldn't have more access than a patient themselves, ideally.
Okay. So they can regulate the pricing and know what they're getting into with the person?
I think that the insurance... Well, as I mentioned before, I don't think the insurance company should know more than a patient. So if patients know that information, then they're more prepared for that sort of a situation. But to have an insurance company know that before them would not be ideal.
So these are big concepts to be discussing on a Wednesday night at the Grand Hotel in Newcastle, aren't they? Isn't it great?
Yes, it's fantastic. I think more of these events should definitely occur, and it gets the community involved in believing in what we're doing here.
That's great. Well, we're just at the end of Science in the Pub, and we've had more than 100 people in a room that's probably only designed to fit about 60. We had 3 eminent scientists, and I'm here with one of the organisers now. Frankie, who are you? What have we had happen here, and what are the ramifications of this for Newcastle? More, I say.
I'm actually nobody, but this has been an event for somebodies, science somebodies. It's been great. We weren't sure how many people we'd get along and who the people would be, and there was all kinds of people here. There were like medical students, but there was also just normal, like Newcastle people as well.
Look, for a room of scientists, there was a lot of good haircuts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there wasn't as many grey beards as I expected. In fact, there were a few of those young beards. I saw some of those too.
Look, and I saw 2 neck beards. Normally you'd get more than 2 neck beards in 100 scientists, but that's not bad.
Yeah. One of the scientists at the end there was saying that he feels that they should do this kind of thing because he owes it to us, because we pay his salary basically through our tax, to find out what people think about the research that he does, whether we think it's worth the effort. And a lot of people made their comments, and he was really happy to have a chance to hear what people think about what he's doing. So I thought that was pretty cool.
And for you, helping out with what's going on here tonight, what was the moment where you went, wow, this is just rocking the house, science-wise?
It's the same. I worked in live music for years, and there's this moment when you don't know whether people are going to come to your gig, and then you look around and they're all arriving at the start, and that happened tonight. I looked around and they were all just coming in the door like it was a perfectly normal thing to do on a Wednesday night, to rock up to a place to listen to scientists blabbering on, and they're all coming in all excited and ready for it and buying their beers like it was normal.
Yeah, look, and I must mention, in Newcastle on a Wednesday night, the uni students, that's the night they go out drinking, and normally by about midnight everyone is really sloshed. It's when most relationships start, because people, they don't try dating, they just get drunk and see how it goes. That is kind of the culture here, and it was great to see people talking about science early on a Wednesday evening.
Yeah, well, they're probably going home and sort of starting relationships now, but perhaps by next Wednesday we could predict they end. I don't know. Scientifically predict that they could end by next Wednesday.
Now, is there any chance of this being more regular in Newcastle? Have you got us an inside running on whether this could happen again?
Everyone I've spoken to since this finished tonight, the scientists and the various punters have all said, we want to do more of this. There should be more of this. This should happen every month. And so there's a lot of enthusiasm. So we'll see what we can do about doing this more. Actually, ABC support has been great. That's a really, really good thing. Jill was a star. Jill Amberson, she's a genius.
您现在收听的是 Skeptic Zone， 我是丽丝，我们的网址是 skeptoid.com.cn。 Skeptoid 是一个科学类 podcast 节目，我们每期都会讨论新的话题，包括探讨流行的传奇故事、阴谋论，或者是声称超自然的现象。您可以到 iTunes 的中文网站下载 Skeptoid， 或者是访问我们的网址skeptoid.com.cn. The Skeptoid Science Podcast by Brian Dunning is now available for Chinese audience. Please tell your Chinese friends to visit skeptoid.com.cn or find Skeptoid on the Chinese iTunes Store. I'm Li Si from skeptoid.com.cn.
Joining me on the line from the beautiful city of Adelaide, the wine capital of Australia, is a man who enjoys a drop or two, Dr Paul Willis.
G'day, mate. How are you?
I'm doing really well, Paul. It's good to catch up with you again. I'm sorry you left Sydney some time back now, of course, but I think you're having a pretty good time in Adelaide.
Oh, look, I grew up in Sydney. I do love Sydney, but I can tell you, living in Adelaide, Sydney is a terrific place to be from. Adelaide is a beautiful town, and I'm certainly enjoying my time here, not only because it's a wonderful city to live in, but also because the job that I've got here at the Royal Institution is just, well, it's as if they invented it for me. And, I've just had the opportunity to do interesting, new, fun stuff, and it's not every day in your professional life you're given a clean sheet of paper and told, go ahead, draw whatever you like, so we're having a lot of fun.
That sounds terrific, and I know that you're very active online because I see your tweets constantly. You're constantly tweeting about what's happening at the Royal Institute. How's that all going with the online stuff?
Well, the thing is that we've realised that in this day and age, if you've got a limited budget and you're a national organisation, the easiest way to service the nation is online. And so we are pretty much focused now on producing online material that people can engage with. So that if we hold an event in our auditorium, we live stream it and we get people not just across the country but around the world following in real time those presentations, and they're actually able to interact through Twitter and through the chat room so that they can actually ask questions. Last year, let me give you an example. Last year we had a live chat via video link to Antarctica, to Mawson Base. And that conversation between me in Adelaide and the guys in Mawson Base, we relied that live to the internet in high definition. It was picked up across the country. It was also picked up in France, Canada, England, and the United States. And we had people in those countries tweeting questions back to me to ask of Antarctica. So we were able to hold a live 4-continent-wide event from this facility. So, that's one way that we're able to exploit the online environment to meet our mission of taking science to the people.
It's wonderful, Paul, and I think to myself every now and then, I like living in the future. It's quite fun.
Well, but also the opportunities that we have to put out vodcasts. We've got all the recording equipment here. We've got essentially a 5-camera high-definition robotic studio, so we can pull together things like vodcasts really easily. And the vodcast that we're currently putting out, A Week in Science, is going gangbusters. It's really taking off. And, again, an easy way to be able to get the messages of science out. It's not just picked up across Australia, it's picked up around the world now. And, this is the future. And the thing that impresses me about moving over to the Royal Institution, looking at new ways of doing things, is that the future of the media, the difference that a lot of people haven't picked up is the old media, the television stations, the newspapers, the radio, the old forms of media, the basis of their economies was money. It was about bums on seats and getting the advertising revenue in. It was a money-based venture. It was a business. Whereas when we go online, it transfers from being money to ideas being the basis of that economy. And so whoever puts out the most interesting ideas and the most accessible ideas, they are the ones who are going to take the lead in that marketplace. So, being able to be a trader in the market of ideas, I find that absolutely invigorating.
That's a fabulous way, a fabulous outlook, I think, to take advantage of what is to all of us. It's still new. I mean, to younger kids growing up now, it's what they've always known. But for us old fossils, so to speak, we remember when all this was coming about.
Oh, don't run yourself down too far, Richard. I mean, look at what you're doing with this podcast. This is you being able to take control of the media and put your messages out directly to your audience.
That's true.
And you've only got to go back 10 years. That was impossible. If you wanted to talk to an audience, you had to go through a media corporation. You had to go through a television station or a radio station or a newspaper. The message ceased to be yours. It was filtered through what they wanted to do in order to not get your ideas across, but in order to make money.
Yeah.
And so, you and I are on the crest of a wave here, and this is the wave of the future for the media. It's all about good ideas, and so, strength to your podcast, strength to our vodcast. It's all about taking those ideas directly to the people who are interested in those ideas.
But talking about the old-fashioned media for a moment, we can think to that ancient technology called television. Here I was, sitting at home the other day, quite comfortable on my couch, channel surfing, and what do I see? Your beaming face come up.
Well, thank you very much. Many people have commented how similar you and I are.
That's true. No, there you are. I knew you were coming up. Now, you were on the ABC. You were on a nationwide program.
News 24, yeah.
That's right, the 24-hour news network, talking about something which I find intensely interesting, and I always have, dinosaurs, but specifically the extinction event and new research.
Yeah. Wasn't I fabulous?
Oh, I recorded it so I could watch it again and again.
As I keep having to say, fig jam. Look, the thing with what that story was all about is it's a great piece of research. Essentially, we've known for the last 30 years that around the time the dinosaurs disappeared, the Earth was whacked by a large meteorite. Now, the main school of thought said the meteorite did it. The meteorite was the reason why the dinosaurs and virtually everything else on the planet went extinct. But there was a dissenting group, and they had some evidence to back themselves up, that said the trouble with that scenario is the meteorite appears to have hit about 300,000 years before the dinosaurs disappear. And so, therefore, the link between the meteorite impact and the dinosaurs disappearing is a little less clear than the other camp would have you believe.
That's quite a gap.
Yeah, it is quite a gap. And a large part of that was because, the crater that they found, which they believe is the crater of the impact, the Chicxulub crater on the Yucatan Peninsula, it's under about 1 kilometre of rock. And so you can only study it by drilling down through it or by doing seismic work and looking at the reflected waves that bounce back off of it. And when you drill down it, you can actually find stuff inside the crater which is older than the age of that the dinosaurs went extinct by about 300,000 years.
Right.
Now, what it appears now is that older stuff in the bottom of the crater is stuff that slumped down after the crater formed. So you had the edge of the crater, and then some older stuff from the edge of the crater slumps down to the bottom and appears to be on top of the impact itself. And that artificially makes it look like the crater is 300,000 years older than it really is. So what this recent study did was it went back and it looked through all of the data. It went through all of the dating of the crater itself, as well as looking at the rates of extinction amongst the dinosaurs and loads of other groups of organisms, and said, no, look, that 300,000-year gap doesn't exist. If anything, there's a gap of maybe 30,000 years, which in geological terms is an instant. So, essentially, it's not overturned our understanding, it's refined our understanding of what happened. The dinosaurs do seem to have been suffering, some groups of dinosaurs more than others, do seem to have been suffering for a few million years prior to that impact. But that impact was the coup de grace. That was what wiped them and something like 70-odd% of species on the planet out.
Yes, and as we know, it happens periodically through Earth's history. And, of course, the thing in the back of our mind is, well, one day, as our friend Dr. Phil Plait says, it's not a question of if it'll happen again, it's a question of when.
Well, if it was a betting proposition, I'd prefer to be betting on drugs in sport. There's much greater certainty that it's going to happen within our lifetimes. The idea of a meteorite hitting it, tomorrow morning, I believe, we're going to have a flypast of asteroid 2012 DA14, and that's going to pass within something like 26,000 kilometres of the Earth. Now, that's only 50 metres across. If it hit the Earth, look, if it was a king hit on a major city, it would cause a bit of problems. It would, you would be saying goodbye to a few thousand people. But that's not the sort of impact that we're talking about that wiped out the dinosaurs. The meteorite that hit the Earth then, back at the end of the Cretaceous, wasn't 50 metres across, it was something like 10 kilometres across. And when you've got something that big, you're talking about something much bigger than Mount Everest. When that slams into the Earth, travelling at an average speed of about 50,000 kilometres an hour, the energy released is absolutely enormous. You're talking about the equivalent of a Hiroshima bomb for every man, woman and child on the planet today, with 1 billion spare. You release that much energy, you're going to cause a lot of trouble. You're going to vaporize, virtually everything within 2,000 kilometers of the impact site. You're going to incinerate everything within 5,000 kilometers. The soot and dust, those fires within the impact zone are going to spread because material is going to be blown back out into above the atmosphere and come down as burning masses all around the world. So you're going to set off fires right the way around the planet. You're going to set off so much ash into the atmosphere that you're going to block out sunlight to the planet probably for months, possibly for years. If you cut out sunlight, plants can't grow. If plants can't grow, plant eaters die. If plant eaters die, meat eaters die. The whole food chain collapses. So, while you might have some cause for concern for tomorrow morning when this little thing buzzes past, believe me, unless you're right underneath it, and it's not going to hit the earth anyway, even if you were right underneath it, chances are it would be nothing like what the dinosaurs had to put up with.
Well, I'm quite surprised the way you talk about the size of this thing and the energy released at the time and the damage, that some dinosaurs managed to hang on after such an incredible event.
Well, look, this is the real problem of explaining a mass extinction is not so much how you wipe everything out, but how the things that get through survive. That's the trickiest part. It's easy to wipe everything out. No problem. But how do you actually have a scenario where a few things survive? Because, yes, one group of dinosaurs survived, the birds. You also had the mammals survived. Yeah. You had lizards, you had snakes, you had turtles, you had crocodiles, you had frogs, you had a number of different types of fish and corals and all sorts of invertebrates. How do they get through when everything else disappears? And the part of the answer is there's three things that particularly vertebrates have in common that survived that extinction. One is they were all small. Nothing over 25 kilograms in mass as an adult got through.
Wow.
Secondly, they all were generalist feeders. In other words, they weren't tied to a particular food source. They could eat anything that was going around. And thirdly, most of them had some capacity to go into torpor when things go bad. So they could hibernate. They could shut their systems down and then wake up when things got better. So those three factors together allow just enough of those particular groups to get through. Whereas, a 7-ton triceratops has got nowhere to hide. It needs a constant supply of food, which disappears. It's a goner. It's no hope. So, it's a fascinating speculation as to how you survive an event like that. Oh, by the way, just reflect on that. 25 kilograms in mass, humans are pretty much above that. Can eat anything? Yeah, we can eat anything. Yeah, we survive on that. Go into torpor? No. So, 2 strikes out of 3. I don't think would survive an impact like that.
Would we want to? That's another question. Would we want to? Maybe we could let the dinosaurs come back.
Hey, but look on the bright side. No, Justin Bieber.
Wow, there is a good side to everything. Every cloud has a silver lining. I won't tell my nieces that. They're mad on Justin Bieber. Folks, this is the sort of things that is an everyday occurrence at the Royal Institute. Not impacts, hitting it or anything like that, but talking about it, exploring it, discussing it, investigating it. And it's something Dr. Paul Willis has been doing for many years, not only on television, but now down at the Royal Institute. Paul, how can people hook up with you?
Check out our website, RIAUS, that's rios.org.au, and there's all sorts of things you can do there, particularly subscribe to our vodcast. Every week on a Friday, we put out a 3-4 minute summary of the best news in science for the week. And, you can watch it on your iPhone. So on your way home from work on a Friday night, you can catch up with the best and brightest of science news just by watching our vodcast. There's all sorts of other ways you can participate. Get involved with the live streams of our events so that you can actually, it doesn't matter where you are in the country, you can still be part of the audience here in Adelaide. All sorts of fun ways. Go to the website.
Or indeed anywhere in the world.
Indeed. Most definitely. Even Antarctica.
Even Antarctica. I'm very jealous. You've been there a number of times. One day I'll get down there.
Yeah, it's cold.
So I understand. Another little gem.
Always
Dr.
good
Paul
for the
Willis.
inside information.
Well, all power to you, Dr. Paul Willis. I hope one day soon I can come down and, maybe even get a personal tour.
You'll be most welcome for a personal tour because I do believe you owe me a beer.
At least one. Dr. Paul Willis, thanks very much.
Cheers, mate.
Hey guys, this is Jay from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. And whoa, hold on, whoa! Everybody knows I'm the only reason to listen to the freaking show, right? I mean, if it was up to me, the show would start with this. Yeah, boy! Well, Rebecca would hate that probably, but I mean, I'd rock that. Listen to our show and you can learn about cool stuff like a technological singularity, which is someday when technology progresses so fast that it would make the Industrial Revolution look like a kid's science project. Anyway, come check us out at www.theskepticsguide.org and get your science on!
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. And another thank you to those people who contribute financially to the Skeptic Zone. Even $1 a week. It's fantastic. So enough of people chip in $1 a week. It helps me keep the show going. And in fact, just in the last week, I was able to buy another one of our reporters, Travis Roy. Travis Roy in New Hampshire in the United States. I was able to buy him a lovely little hand recorder so he can do some more reports for the Skeptic Zone. And that's all due to the generosity of listeners just like you. For more details, visit www.skepticzone.tv. But for now, this is Richard Saunders, signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.
Have you all lost the plot?
Call this a plot?